Shalom. Our Torah portion this week is Mishpatim. The word Mishpatim means ordinances or statutes. What's the difference between a statute or an ordinance and a law? In last week's Torah portion, Yitro, we had a number of laws, general principles put out in the form of the Ten Commandments. Now, if you were to ask the average person, perhaps even the average Jew on the street, how many commandments are in the Torah, they might say, well, there are 10. But the knowledgeable Jew knows that there are 613 commandments in the Torah. Now, there was a time when the Ten Commandments appeared in the traditional Jewish prayer book, but not so anymore. The classical prayer book does not contain the Ten Commandments, even though during the time when the temple stood in Jerusalem, the Ten Commandments were part of the liturgy. People recited the Shema and the Amidah prayer and the Ten Commandments. But there were people who were called sectarians, people who were on the periphery of the Jewish people, people who were actually leaving the Jewish people to become Christians, who insisted that at least 603 of those commandments were no longer that 603 commandments were no longer necessary. All we needed to do was to obey those 10 commandments. And so the rabbi said, just so that the Jewish people don't get the wrong idea that they're not obligated to keep Passover, and they're not obligated to think about their diets and to obey the moral and ethical precepts found in other places in the Torah, that the Ten Commandments would not be in our prayer book and would not be part of the liturgy. Now, in this week's Torah portion, Mishpatim, we see very detailed discussions, very detailed, you might even call it case law, about, or clarification of some of the laws that appear in last week's Torah portion in the Ten Commandments. For example, in the Ten Commandments it says, "Thou shalt not murder," but it gives no explanation as to what constitutes murder. What if someone breaks into my house in the dark of night and I feel threatened and I want to protect my own life and the life of my family and my property? What if I take the life of that intruder? Is that murder? What if I'm called upon to defend my country, and on the field of battle I take the life of an enemy combatant? Is that murder? Is murder only the taking of a human life? You know, there are animal rights activists these days that would suggest that killing an animal is an act of murder. Well, these things have to be discussed. One thing that I find very interesting here is that the Torah wants us to engage in detailed discussions. The Torah wants us to bring the power of our minds, our emotions, and our souls into an analysis of the text, to find ways of applying the text to the unique context of our community life in any given generation, and to find a way to make these laws applicable in our own lives. I want to draw your attention to a verse here in Mishpatim, chapter 24, verse 12 in the book of Exodus. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Ale alai hahara v'yeh sham v'yetna lecha et luchot ha'even v'hatorah v'hamitzvah asher katavdi lehorotam. The Eternal One said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there." Now what's interesting here is the phrase Vaye sham. Wait there, it's translated here. But actually it means be there. Literally it means be there. And I will give you the stone tablets with the teachings and the commandments which I have inscribed to instruct them. Now, what's interesting here is God commands Moses to go up to the mountain. And that should have been enough. Just come up to the mountain. But it says those seemingly superfluous words, and be there. What does this say? It's not enough just to observe the laws, just to obey the laws, not to do those thou shalt nots, and to do those thou shalts. It is to think about them, to analyze them, to bring our whole being into a relationship with God's law, and thus develop a deeper relationship with God. To be there with our full consciousness. Well, I hope that you will read this week's Torah portion and come to your own conclusion. Shabbat Shalom.